Hi everyone, Christoph the Polish Geek, and I'm back with another movie review. And this is a review of another movie that I was very much looking forward to, Paddington in Peru, because I really loved the first two Paddington movies, as well as the movie this directed by the same guy, Paul King, Wonka. Yep, I really enjoyed all those three movies. I just love this feel-good family movie. Yep. That's right, many people dismiss all those movies as kids' movies, and they objectively are, but because of just how well written they are and likable characters, you just can't help but love all three of those feel-good family movies. And my favorite is by far Paddington 2. And so of course, when I knew that the third movie in the Paddington series was going to be Paddington in Peru, of course, I was very excited and interested in that, especially that I thought that it was a very logical place to move the story forward. After all, Paddington originated from Peru. That's where he originally was from. Like, he originated in Peru and then he moved to London, where he was adopted by the Brown family, but it doesn't change the fact that Peru, as well as his Aunt Lucy, have been basically an essential part of him. So, yeah, I thought that going back to Peru was a very logical way to move the story forward. Although, there was one thing that was giving me a pause. When I found out that sadly Paul King was not going to direct it, I did become a little bit sad and worried after all, because he did such a phenomenal job with the first two Paddington movies as well as Wonka. Although then I found out that he still wrote the story, so I guess I was... Although I still wish it was Paul King who directed it, but nevertheless, I still really enjoyed Paddington in Peru. It's certainly not as good as Paddington 2, and probably not even as good as Paddington 1. If I have to compare this and Wonka, I don't know, I would say they're about equal in that case, but yep, I really enjoyed Paddington Peru, but I don't think it was quite as good as the first two Paddington movies. So yes, as the trailers have shown, Paddington, as well as the Brown family, go to Peru because Paddington heard some news that his Aunt Lucy went missing, so he goes to Peru together with the Brown family to look for her, and then they go on this expedition around the Peru nature. And first I'll say the visuals and landscapes in this movie were obviously beautiful, and yes, Peru is by the way one of those countries I would so much like to visit. Like, almost never been anywhere in Latin America, but yep, I would very much love and explore all the nature and mountains of Peru. But so yes, the visuals and beautiful nature of Peru is simply excellent and feast for the eyes. And I also did like the story of the movie, even though I do have to say there are moments where I could see some people finding a little dull objectively, where nothing is happening, just a conversation that doesn't ultimately lead to anywhere between characters. I actually kind of enjoyed them, don't know how to do on subsequent viewings, but yes, there are some moments where I could say, like, could be a little dull, like Paddington on a river, looking around and doing nothing for 5 minutes. And again, I didn't mind it, but I could see some people seeing it as dull. Another thing, also, many people already knew that from the trailers that was going to be the case, but Mrs. Brown has obviously been recast from Sally Hawkins to Emily Mortimer. And while I actually do think Emily Mortimer is a much better actress than Sally Hawkins, not a huge fan of Sally Hawkins, honestly, it's still pretty distracting that she looks completely different to how she looked in the first two movies. Ultimately, can't say it bothered me strongly, but it is objectively kind of distracting. And also, the movie is pretty silly at times. Like, I mean, yeah, like objectively, the first two were already kind of silly. After all, having a talking bear living in the middle of London as a human with a regular family, if that isn't silly, I don't know what is. But I do feel this one, with some places, did go a little bit overboard with silliness, especially when it came to the fate of the main villain. But this would involve a huge spoiler, so I'm not getting into that, but yeah, when it came to a fate of a main villain, this is admittedly what was a little bit too silly, even for movies like that. And the movie also made plenty of references to Indiana Jones movies, but I also liked the new character of a riverboat captain played by Antonio Banderas, who many of us who saw the trailer thought he was going to be the main villain. Was he though? You'll have to find out, although I would be surprised if you've already seen it anyway, but I don't want to say this in this review, but overall, Paddington in Peru is, I think, a worthy prequel of the Paddington trilogy. I think that taking Paddington and the Browns to Peru was a really smart choice, and for the most part, the movie still has this feel-good family movie of the first two movies, even though I do think it slightly doesn't reach the quality of them, but it's still very good, and if you like the first two and want more, then I very much suggest you go see Paddington in Peru. Just don't expect it to be as great as the first two. It's still very good, and still very much worthy to be part of this trilogy. And one more thing. I said that I will try not to do much spoilers, but I will do one spoiler about the ending. Like, if you think it's a huge spoiler world, there's still lots of things I'm not including, and I'm not going to, but I will include one spoiler, because this is something I was kind of worried before I went to see the movie, but I'm glad it didn't happen, because I was really afraid that like Paddington would permanently stay in Peru. Like this has actually become like a pretty common trend now in lots of poorly written family movies. I mean, Paddington are very well written, but in general in family movies, many of whom are actually poorly written, that when a character moves to their origins place from their adopted family, then he or she just chooses to stay there permanently. Thankfully, this did not happen to Paddington. Like, he did ultimately choose to stay with the Brown family. And it makes sense, like, the Brown family became practically an essential part of his life. Like, he is just as much of a Brown as the rest of them. So, it would be pretty cheesy if he just decided to stay in Peru. So, the fact that he chose to return with Browns to England, to London, I think made perfect sense, and I'm glad it ended this way. So overall, I have to say I was pretty happy with Paddington in Peru. Not as good as the first two, kind of on the similar quality level I say as Wonka, and that's all that it needed to be. And thank you all of you for checking out this review. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you later, bye!